What's going on, everyone? So welcome to my latest video. This is part of a series where I focus on a specific director and rank that director's work from worst to best. Done such directors in the past such as David Lynch, David Fincher, Spike Lee, Spike Jonze, and many more. You guys can check out those directors and those many more in my director playlist down below. But guys, you clicked on this video, so you know this time around I'm focusing on Osgood Perkins films and ranking them from worst to best. Now, do keep in mind, I am filming this on March 1st of 2025. So as of the filming of this video, he has done 5 films. That's right, 5 feature-length films that will not include any short films, music videos, video games, TV shows, none of that. Specifically speaking, feature-length films. So again, I'll be going from 5 to 1, 5 being his worst, 1 being his best, and of course my humble opinion. And it goes without saying, but this is a subjective list. It is not an objective list, meaning that my list will be different from yours. And that's what's great about film as an art form. So I am looking forward to seeing what your list looks like down below. But guys, enough exposition. Let's get started. So kicking things off, by number 5, we have, this is a long title, I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House. This movie, as soon as I watched it, I had to quickly go on Letterboxd to log it because it was dissipating from my memory as I literally was going through the credits of that movie. It's not a bad movie per se, but it's definitely a middle-of-the-road type movie. I don't know. I think the only reason why I would say watch this movie is if you're like myself trying to watch all of Osgood Perkins movies. Other than that, you're not really missing out on much, in my personal opinion. But who knows? Maybe if I rewatch in the future, that will change. But for now, I felt kind of indifferent to it, and that's why it's my number 5. Next up, my number 4, we have The Black Coat's Daughter. This movie was okay. I thought that it was definitely a step up, clearly, because it's my number 4. But I liked the atmosphere. I liked the cinematography, the performances. There were some things that were holding it back structurally. I do think that there are a lot of things that left things to be desired personally for me in regards to how the story was told. But still, from an atmosphere perspective, from a heart perspective, it works for sure. And that's why it's my number 4. Next up, my number 3, this is the most recent movie, and that is The Monkey. I had a lot of fun with The Monkey. It is a Sam Raimi, Peter Jackson-esque film. It definitely leans more so into like dark comedy than just straight up horror. And for me, I was okay with that because going into it, I had heard that it was a horror comedy, so I had my expectations in line, and I had a lot of fun with it. I really did. I think that it's overall a very well-crafted film, has a really good opening scene, really good makeup, costume design, performances, ton of fun. Can see why some audiences aren't really, warming up to it, but for me, I quite enjoyed this film. That's why it's my number 3. Next up, my number 2, we have Gretel and Hansel. So Gretel and Hansel, it's funny because when I first saw this, I thought it was middle of the road, but I couldn't get the cinematography and the score out of my head. And that's what actually made me decide to rewatch it. And I'm glad that that was the case because upon rewatch, I liked this film quite a bit. And I've seen it, I think, 1 or 2 other times after that. And I like it quite a bit. It's a very atmospheric, well-filmed, well-acted, well-scored film. And it's not that long. It's not that long, but at the same time, it has a lot of memorable imagery, and the visual storytelling is top-notch. Definitely a film that if you are into horror, and specifically horror that's visually stimulating, this is definitely the film for you. I like it quite a bit, and that's why it's my number 2. Next up, my number 1, if we're talking from an entertainment perspective, like one that I care a lot more about, like the filmmaking per se, Gretel and Hansel would be my number 1. But there's a film that came out last year that I do think overall is technically a better film, and that's my number 1, which is Long Legs. Long Legs I saw twice in theaters. I think that this is a good film. I've heard some people say that it was overhyped or that the marketing was mismarketed, and whatever. I didn't see any of the marketing, so I can't really attest to that, but what I will say is going into this film, I didn't really know much about it, other than Nicolas Cage was starring in it, and I have to say, Michael Monroe, Nicolas Cage, they did a really good job with this film in terms of the performances. I really like the atmosphere, really, really enjoyed the tone, how dark it is, the imagery, the makeup. There's just a lot to appreciate from a filmmaking perspective, but it's also a film that has a lot to say, which I also appreciate. And I do think that the third act in particular is ambitious with what it sets out to do. So some people could say that it's a Silence of the Lambs knockoff, and I can see where they're coming from. But I do think that this film does stand on its own. It's, of course, not as great as Silence of the Lambs, but I do think that this is a good film, one that's definitely worth your time, and that's why I have it as my number 1. So usually I like to talk about the director, after my ranking and if I like them or not. And I'll say this. I like Osgood Perkins. He's a director that, even though he's only made 5 films, he's someone that I'm curious about with what's going to come out, next from him. Like, he's someone that seems to be post Gretel Hansel. He seems to be someone that's working quite a bit. So seeing his name, directed by Osgood Perkins, I'm immediately intrigued by him because he's someone that is very much so in tune with how important atmosphere is, how important tone is, and just also shooting things in camera as much as possible. These are all elements that I like that he has an emphasis on. So I like Osgood Perkins. I would say that even though my number 4 and 5 I'm not the biggest fans of, I still think they have their merits. I do think that he has yet to make like a bad movie, and he's someone that I like that he shoots for the fences. I really do with these concepts that he tackles. So I like Osgood Perkins. I'm curious to hear if you guys like him, if you don't, as well as what your ranking is for his films. Let me know in the comment section down below. And as always, guys, I really appreciate you guys for watching. If you haven't done so already, be sure to follow me on Patreon, Letterboxd, subscription, notification bell, and I will catch you guys later.